And today I've got a conversation for you with David Clark. He is a partner at Elevate Ventures. They're a venture development organization in Minneapolis. And since David's right there, and we're going to start early, can you help me out by giving him a big round of applause? Thank you, David. David, good to see you. And we should get him a mic. Yep. Thank you. There, I see it actually, well.
All right, thank you.
All right. Hey, David, before we started, you said that there are two different sides to your fund. How's it work, to the organization?
Yes, there is. While we are a fund that invests in technology companies, we also recognize that entrepreneurs need assistance.
Let's get the mic closer. Sorry, you really need to get close with this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
They need assistance as much as they need money. So we have entrepreneurs in residence throughout the state of Indiana.
Yep.
Who work with entrepreneurs, and that's funded by local communities, community foundations. It doesn't come out of our fund, and that helps us work with entrepreneurs, gets them to the point where we will invest, and then we help them attract additional capital.
So you help them get going, get to the point where you would invest, and then you help them get funding.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have a co-investment strategy. So what that means is we will invest maybe up to half of what the entrepreneur is seeking. And so part of that is our co-investment strategy helps us validate that we're making a good decision. If they can make or find other investors that come into the deal, it helps us. Yeah.
And before we started, you were telling me about this opportunity that entrepreneurs have who work with you to get essentially mentored, to go into, how does it work?
Yeah, so when a company applies to us for funding and they pass some initial vetting, we assign an entrepreneur in residence to work with them.
Okay.
And they may spend a week, a month, sometimes a year of helping them shape their business plan, develop a capitalization strategy.
So before they even have a company, you send them out to another company. They spend, what, a year, you said?
Up to a year sometimes.
Up to a year, getting mentored, working one-on-one.
Right.
Okay. What kind of companies do they go to work with to get training?
They work with us, but so we're seeking technology companies, software companies. They may be existing, they may be a pure idea, but we try to provide them. The bottom line is we try to get them the right resources to the right companies at the right time.
Okay. We had a question here. I'm going to go back and forth between my questions and your questions. Yes. What was that question?
Hey, my name is Dwight, founder of BackerSub.com. I wanted to know at what point should entrepreneurs really differentiate between bootstrapping and seeking to raise a fund? Like, when should we focus on just building our product as much as we possibly can before we get distracted trying to raise a fund? I hope that made sense.
It does, yeah. The question of how much traction should you get on your own before you decide to go and get funding, right, Dwight?
Yeah, that's a good question. The companies that look most attractive to us are those who have some traction and can show some market validation or customer validation. What really impresses us are the entrepreneurs who can get pretty far down the road on very little resources. It shows that you might have what it takes to take it further. So I don't know if there's a specific point that's exactly the right time. Yeah.
Okay. You're not from San Francisco.
I'm not from San Francisco. I'm from Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. And the companies you invest in are not in San Francisco. They're not outside of Indianapolis, right?
That's correct. Not outside of Indiana.
Not outside of Indiana.
Right. So why am I here, right?
Why are you here?
Well, I would say there are three reasons. One is that we co-invest. So we're out here seeking relationships with funds and investors to come into our deals. So we've had quite a bit of success with that. Helping shape exits. So one of our companies was just bought by Oracle. You heard a company called ExactTarget that was acquired by Salesforce.com. I mean, those sort of things are happening out in our area. So we want to build those relationships to introduce our portfolio companies to funds. Second, though, there's an incredible amount of talent here. One of the biggest issues that we have is creating an A team for a great idea. So having access to talent that whether you live in Indianapolis or you live here, but you can provide assistance and maybe be part of that team in some fashion, we'd want to talk to you. And then third, if you have the inclination and you're not violently don't have a violent reaction to the idea of moving to Indiana, we'd want to talk to you. We have done that a few times as well.
So you will fund an entrepreneur who moves his company.
Oh, we love that. Absolutely.
I see. What is it like over there?
This time of year?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's flat for the most part.
Okay.
We have some hills in the southern part. We're trying to find a way to build an ocean.
I see.
Kentucky and Tennessee didn't like the idea, so we looked at the Great Lakes, and Detroit, Chicago didn't like that idea either. And we don't have a mountain range either, but it's just cold, and this is a great time of year to be out here. Let's just put it that way.
I got a thumbs up for that one. So I remember when I first came here to launch, back when at the time I was living in Washington, D.C., I think, and I remember coming here, and I felt like such an outsider. Yeah. Do you feel like that here?
Yeah, I do, but I kind of grew up feeling like an outsider.
How do you mean?
Painfully shy, didn't quite fit in, and I like being out here. I like diversity, and then I would say I feel humbled when I come out here. I think a lot of bright people.
Because you see people who are so far ahead that it's humbling.
So far ahead, great ideas. Wish I would have thought of that, or I never would have thought of that. Wouldn't have the background in it. So I come out here and I get energized. Being an older guy, I love coming out, and I go back with great ideas, new connections, and full of energy. I really just love it.
Do you feel at this point comfortable enough to start a conversation with an investor that you want to co-invest with? Do you feel comfortable enough starting conversations with people in general here?
Absolutely.
How did you break the shyness?
How did I what?
How did you break yourself of the shyness?
Oh, well, the real story is I went to work for Mellon Bank out of college in Pittsburgh. Didn't know anybody in the city. Had painfully shy, and my boss suggests I take the Dale Carnegie classes.
I did that. It's a huge help. The How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yes.
Yeah. So then getting up in front of people numerous times, you just break through it, and one day you wake up and you don't feel shy anymore. So yeah.
One day after weeks and weeks of their training, but it works.
A few years maybe. Yeah. Absolutely.
How about another question from the audience, from someone who's not shy? Yes. Oh, I know you're not shy.
Sumedh Jagini, founder of Catalyst and a IU Kelly alum. So
me too.
Nice. So from Indiana, went to school there at least, and the Midwestern mentality affects the investment criteria. Mm-hmm. And I was just curious, you want to co-invest, but have you seen any sort of deviations in terms of how the investment criteria is on the coasts versus in Indiana?
Yeah, I think out here I get the sense that a lot of the VCs look for singular ideas, a very narrow idea that they can take forward. It's not complicated. It's easy to it's maybe complicated, but it's just easier to launch maybe. We don't have that luxury in the Midwest. We don't see nearly as many deals. We may look at 400 companies a year. While we may invest in 1 or 2% of those, we'll help. For every one we invest in, we'll help 10 more get funded through our angel network. So we've worked, even though it may not fit our criteria, we really want to lift the tide, raise all boats in the state, meaning the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So we want to, even though they're deals that we may not go into, we work very hard to get these entrepreneurs funded, through our angel network.
Let me make sure to make that clear. You work with angels. How many of them?
Well, we have a network of about 2,000 now. And I rolled into Elevate about 2.5 years ago. And just a real quick story. The first time I raised money for myself was in 1999. Now, granted, I took 6 months to prepare for that. And I hired a coach, hired an entrepreneur, a guy who had raised capital to tell me how to do that. He beat me up for 6 months. I finally set a meeting with someone we thought was well qualified. I asked for $2 million. I got the nod the next day. So it took me an hour to raise that money.
Wow.
Yeah. So I ended up exiting that company, made some money. My second startup, I thought, well, that was easy. The first time was easy. I can do this again. And I have a track record now. I had an exit. So I put my own money in to this new startup, spent 6 months growing it, and then I needed just to raise maybe 500 grand. It took me 6 months and about 100 meetings to raise that 500 grand. So reality hit me. And I recognized how hard it was. So when I exited that company about 3 years later, I decided to start an angel network because in Indiana, it seemed like there was a gatekeeper at every stop. It was hard to get to people with money, and it's hard to meet with them, direct. So I wanted to democratize that and open it up. And if you want to be an angel in my group, you have to be willing to meet with entrepreneurs and spend time with them and get to know them. So we grew that to about 300 angels, and Elevate heard about what we were doing and asked that I roll that in and have a little bigger vision and do it for more than helping myself, do it on behalf of the state. And so that's what I did. And now we have about 2,000 members and have been very instrumental in creating new angel chapters around the state.
And one of the reasons why I asked you about that is when you're here meeting with entrepreneurs, it's not just with Elevate in mind, it's with those 2,000 angels who potentially would want to meet with, invest with, and work with the entrepreneurs that you meet.
Yes, and I'm an open networker.
What does that mean?
I don't turn down network requests on LinkedIn or or Twitter. Yep. Yeah. I'm also a collaborator. I like to collaborate, and I have empathy for the entrepreneur, having been one. In fact, I am one. So I want to help, and if I can connect you with a group or a few angels that may get you started on your path to funding, I'd be happy to do it. But granted, I've got 24 hours a day to do that. Right?
What kind of entrepreneurs are you looking for Elevate? And how about as you're thinking about the angels in your network?
Yeah, so the entrepreneurs we like to talk to are people who are looking for more than money. They want assistance, or they value that. And if they're looking for a check and ask us to go away, we're not a good fit. We're very hands-on in our involvement. We're also looking for what I would call winners. Even if you've never run a company before, or you haven't launched a company, done a startup, what have you done in your past? And what really excites me is I meet someone who's been from humble beginnings, who has a fire to solve a real problem, has a burning desire to solve a problem rather than make $1 billion necessarily. I mean, it's great if it comes along, but they have to have that desire to really solve a real problem, and then just has the energy and has passion. So if I find those three things, we want to spend time with them.
What size investments do you make at Elevate? And I see you've got a question. What size investments?
Yeah, I'd say the typical range is $500,000 to $1 million. It's ranged between maybe $250 or $125 and up to $2 million per company.
All right. Yes.
Peter from Meeting Pulse. David, what sort of industries or projects interest you personally? Like, what are you looking for personally?
What types of...
What projects and products are you interested in personally as you're here?
Well, I would say the ones you would expect. So software as a service interest us. Narrow it down. I don't know that I can.
So consumer, business.
We just don't have the luxury in Indiana and the Midwest to be very narrow. We have to be broad. And so pardon?
Are you just asking him about his enthusiasm? Like, what companies does he get so excited about that he wants to pay attention to beyond Elevate and beyond looking for investments? Okay.
Okay, so if you go out to my LinkedIn profile, you would find that I'm on the board of 3 companies. Cloud One, which is a cloud computing company. Gusto, which is a new app that's making email easier to work across social platforms. So it becomes a place where you can gather access to information across your social platforms.
So a little closer with the mic.
And access attachments directly from Dropbox, for example. And then the third would be Oak Financial, which is a mobile payments platform. So I know it's pretty broad, but my background prior to doing my startups was in the banking technology, banking software, enterprise software space.
All right, how about another question from anyone out there? Yeah, I'll be right there. What was the company the first company in 1999 that you got funded?
It was called Clarity. We were very early, at least in the Midwest, in providing the picks and shovels to help companies be on the web. And that kind of morphed or pivoted into where we were taking technology out of companies and hosting it in our data centers. And on Christmas Eve of 2000, I guess it was, I was on Inside Indiana Business, which you've never seen, I'm sure. It's a TV show. And they asked about the tech downturn at that time and asked if I thought it was going to continue. I said, of course, I think it is, but I think we'll get past it. But I thought the biggest issue we had was terrorism. That was our biggest threat. 9 months later, 9/11 happened, and that was a time where companies really started to move their servers and technology out of corporate environments into a more secure and nondescript data center. It just fueled our growth. We went from, when I raised my money, I went from just getting the idea going. I was at $2 million run rate within 6 months, and then once 2000, 2002 timeframe, we got through that cycle. We were at probably 15 million. Sold, we hit about 50.
Wow. Congratulations. That's serious stuff, right? Yes, what's your question?
Hi, Pierre from Timeblend. How important is the startup team when you invest in a company, like solo founder, co-founder, or yeah? Oh,
I'm sorry. Let me clarify. If you ask how important, he's going to say it's very important. You have a specific reason. Are you a solo entrepreneur? And so you're worried about your chances of getting funded as a solo entrepreneur. Gotcha. Okay. Does that feel right? Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very difficult to get funded as a solo entrepreneur. So if you have a tech company and you're not the developer, and you're outsourcing it, we don't want to see that. I mean, that's everybody would probably tell you that out here. But on the other hand, at least in Indiana, it's not uncommon where the team needs help, needs work, and needs more talent to be recruited, to be on it. So we have full-time recruiters that we've retained to help attract talent to our startups and early-stage companies. So when I say we work with companies, we put a lot of time in it before we ever put our money in.
All right. Did you have a question? Here, you say it.
How important is geographic location for your investments? Do they have to be based in Indiana? I mean, what about here?
Yes, they are all based in Indiana today. However, we're just starting a process to put a fund together to have more of a national scope. And we're always open to talking to people who want to move, of course. But
By the way,
we've been around for 2.5 years, so we had to start somewhere. We're all from Indiana. We wanted to come back and make a difference. We all lived someplace else before, coming back to living there.
I've moved around so much. I can't imagine not moving if the dream that I'm building, if this vision that I have means that I have to move to another city. But I'm going to move for something other than money. What else beyond money would draw me over?
Low cost of living.
Okay.
So you can, for $1 million, what will that buy out here?
Uh-huh.
You can have a mansion in Indianapolis for, a very, very, very nice home for $1 million. Now, if you don't have that kind of money, you can have a very, very, very nice house for $200 or $250.
And then also, if you have a low cost of living, it means your burn rate and your pressure is reduced.
Yeah, I would say the cost of doing business in Indiana is probably 40% less than it would be here, at least. We have a AAA debt rating. We have a balanced budget. It's a very business-friendly state. It's one of the easiest places to really start a business from a financial standpoint. The challenges would be the talent side. And if you have to be close to oceans and mountains, that's not us either.
Yeah.
You neglected the Indy 500, which is pretty awesome.
Yes, and the Brickyard. We have a decent basketball team this year, the Pacers. IU kind of goes in and out of that cycle. What built Indianapolis? So I graduated from IU, 30 years ago or whatever. But at the time, there wasn't much to keep you in Indianapolis. I moved away. I lived in Pittsburgh. I lived in New York. I lived in Dallas. I lived in Frankfurt, Germany before I went back to Indiana. And In that time frame, though, it started off as a brand that they tried to create as the amateur sports capital of the world. They were successful in that. Then attracted some good pro teams and just hosted the Super Bowl a couple years ago. So it's a cool place. It's a lot nicer than when I left it, and it's a family-friendly place, to live.
My name's Dan Driscoll. I'm a grad student at UT Austin working on a startup, and I think there's a movement on campuses, speaking of IU, it's one of many, where they're really pushing entrepreneurship and sort of becoming incubators in their own right with coursework. Also, student loans have become something of a runway to building. Would you invest in a company that has current students who are finishing their degrees, or do you think that's a flag and you want the students to drop out?
I didn't hear the last part of your question.
He's asking, would you invest in a company that's run by entrepreneurs who are still in school? How many of you know Nest GSV? You know it? You met yesterday. You know it too. All right. Joining me right now is Keyvan Barumand. Did I pronounce your last name right?
Yep.
He is the founder of Nest GSV.
Nest GSV.
What does Nest do?
So Nest GSV is a technology innovation center that brings together startups, corporations, governments, and universities to collaborate together to use technology to solve big problems. So in a sense, we're the accelerator of accelerators. We're building a globally connected network of these innovation centers. Our first center is in Silicon Valley. We have about 80,000 square foot campus and about 80 companies in there right now. And with a plan of opening up centers this year in certain markets around the world.
Can you give me give me an example of how you work with a company? Maybe one company and how you work with them.
Sure. So I think what we do best is engage the different stakeholders in the innovation economy. So, for instance, what we do best is bring together startups and large corporations and governments. So in the case of, let's say, Tata Communications, we engage with them strategically.
What does Tata do?
Well, Tata does many things.
Excuse me.
Well, Tata is a conglomerate.
The Indian company?
The Indian company.
Yes.
So in this case, we are dealing with Tata Communications. And just to give you the idea how large Tata is, 50% of the global internet traffic goes through Tata Communications pipes. So
50% of global...
50 to 60%.
Okay.
So all the sub-oceanic pipelines, basically the fiber that connects all the continents together, that's all owned by Tata Communications.
Okay, so they come to you for what?
So Tata, all their customers are all the carriers around the world. And obviously what they're trying to do is create more value to their customers who are all the carriers around the world and the service providers. So, and at the same time, they're looking for strategies that would drive more traffic, more bandwidth. So in the case of Tata, we were engaged to identify technologies in the video and collaboration space.
Because video takes up a lot of bandwidth, and they want people who are using... Okay, so they come to you and they say, help us out, help us get more companies out there to use video.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And at the same time, they're looking to provide more services to their